Hello, I'm Emily Sorensen, the BDE for Calgary in Southern Alberta. I'm honored today to be hosting. Welcome to Exam 1's Understanding the Paramedical Process. Our speaker today is Rhonda, Senior Sales Representative. Total of 10 years in the industry, 5 years with Watermark Insurance, and joined Exam 1 5 years ago. Territory spans from Southwest Ontario, GTA, and outwards to Ottawa and Manitoba. Rhonda will walk you through the entire paramedical process and how truly valuable collaboration is to help ensure a smooth and seamless process for both you and your clients.
Hi, Emily. Hello, everyone. Perfect. So I will take over then. Thank you for the introduction, Emily. Thank you to Wendy and IDC for having me today. I'm going to share my screen. So yes, thank you for the introduction. I have been 10 years with Exam 1. Myself, Andrew Namel, help cover Southwestern Ontario and Toronto, if anyone's heard of Andrew Namel, and then Felix Drake in Alberta and BC, just to give you an introduction to them as well. So I'm going to start with a bit of history for Exam 1, give you some information on the entire process. So from start to finish, to help you as advisors prepare your clients. You do have a very big role in preparing your clients for the process. And then I'm going to show you at the end a demo of our portal. We just got a new system at the end of next year, so I'm excited to show everyone and introduce everyone to the portal. So a couple updates and reminders. We did go through a lot of changes several years ago with the paramedical companies. I just want to remind everyone that Watermark was acquired by Exam 1. So we are one and the same. We are the same company. For those advisors who are on the call today, our Watermark website is still up and running. So if you do happen to be using Watermark for placing your orders, you can still do so. That website will be up until the end of the year. And then Exam 1, like I mentioned, we did get a new system, the Exam 1 portal. So if you happen to be registered on the old system and don't have new login, please let me know and we can get you set up on the new system. And there are no restrictions with who we can work with. We can work with all carriers in Canada. So there's no limitations with the insurance companies we work with. Again, if you do want to be registered, my email is here. You can take a screenshot. You will get a follow-up email from me with information as well if you wanted to reply to that with registration. If you are not placing your orders yourself, if you are having the insurance companies handle the ordering for you, you do have the option. Many of the companies allow advisors to request a preferred vendor. So if you aren't placing them directly with us, we would love for you to request us to the carrier or your MGA, your admin within IDC to work with Exam 1. So let's get into a little bit about Exam 1 and the history. We've been in the life insurance industry for over 40 years. We're owned by Quest Diagnostics, so the largest lab in the world. We have 2 North American laboratories, 9 regional offices, which are also referred to as our branch offices. And then expansive mobile coverage all across Canada. So we do have examiners all across Canada and beyond. And then we also have multilingual examiners. So if your client speaks another first language and you'd like to request an examiner that speaks their language, please let us know and we will look into examiner coverage. And then we reach out to the insurance company to get approval from the insurance company. We have convenient in-center locations. So most of the branch offices are within Ontario. So for those advisors on the call today, the branch offices will be listed at the end of the presentation. That gives you an idea of where they're located. And they also act as in-center locations, meaning that clients can go there and have their requirements collected and paramedical done in those offices. And then just a reminder, our Exam 1 head office is in Pickering, so within Ontario, and our hours are Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you happen to be calling your orders in, you would want to do so between 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, or orders placed online can be 24/7, and then we just work on them and assign to examiner the next business day. So what to expect during the paramedical exam. So once an order has been placed, our office will work on assigning it to an examiner. They usually do so same day or by the next day, depending on what time they receive that order. And the examiner has 24 to 48 hours to call your client. So it's a really good idea to prepare your client after you place the order with us, that within 2 to 3 days, they should be receiving a call from the examiner. That way they have an expected time frame as to when that call is going to come in. Appointments can be held at client's home, workplace, or fixed facility. So client's home by our mobile examiners are definitely most common, and we've been doing that throughout the pandemic, with the exception of the first lockdown. That was the only time when everything completely shut down. But ever since that first lockdown, our examiners have still been going out and seeing clients. Also, workplace, so place of business. So just know our examiners can go to your client's place of business if they are going back into the office, or they could go to your workplace, your office, IDC office, etc. So some advisors like to go over the application with the clients first and piggyback that with an appointment with the examiner. So just know that is an option. Fixed facilities are also referred to as executive clinics. So we do have 7 within the GTA. Any outside of Ontario and the GTA, if anyone ever wants to find out the options that we have for fixed facilities, you can always reach out to me and I can look into that for you. But fixed facilities are one-stop shops. They are for higher net worth clients, so they're typically for several million and above. You do need insurance company approval for clients to go there. It does cost a lot more than being seen by a mobile examiner. So it is an option for those higher net worth clients. Appointments, we always try our best to gear those appointments based on your client's preference. So we want to try to accommodate what works best for your client as much as we can. Do know that our examiners are independent contractors. So each examiner, when they start with us, gives us their availability, and every examiner works different hours. So if there's ever a situation where you're hearing that the examiner is dictating the time to be seen, so say the client wants to be seen in the morning and the examiner is saying, I only do evening appointments. The process for that is the examiner is supposed to call our office back and we're to reassign to a second examiner. So if you're hearing that's not happening, we do value feedback. That's how we stay on top of our examiners. Our examiners are shared with our competitor. We only have one other competitor in Canada, and we do draw from the same pool of examiners. So it's very important for both of us to hear that examiner feedback. What's included in the paramedical exam? So it's going to be medical health history questions. So paramedical form, so that's done in person at time of specimen collection, or telephone interview. So telephone interview would be a 2-step process if specimens are needed. So they would do the telephone interview with the interviewer on the phone for one appointment, and the second appointment would be with an examiner collecting their specimens. So vitals, that includes your blood pressure readings. So we do 3 with a minimum of 5 minutes apart. Pulse, height, and weight, that's all included in the vitals. And then blood, urine, and possibly an ECG could be required. So this is everything that could be included in a paramedical exam for your client. So various specimens. So what are the underwriters, what are the insurance companies looking for specifically within the specimen collection? So urine, they're looking at the kidney function, diabetes, nicotine, drug use, and HIV. For blood, they're looking at heart disease, liver disease, including alcoholism, PSA, prostate-specific antigen, HIV, diabetes, and kidney function, okay? And just know anytime blood is ordered, it will always include a urine. So how long does everything take? Just like it's a good idea to prepare your client for roughly when they should receive a call, it's a good idea to prepare them for the amount of time they will be for whether it's a telephone interview or that appointment with the examiner. So there's no surprises for them. They've allotted the required amount of time. They're not going longer, racing off to whatever they have next, and hopefully they get wrapped up within the time frame that's been quoted to them. So we say up to 20 minutes for a telephone interview. So one client could be maybe 10, 15 minutes. Maybe they're saying no all the way through, versus another client that is answering yes to several questions with additional detail being required. Up to 20 minutes for blood draw and urine collection. Again, one client could be successful in the first blood draw versus another client that might take up to the maximum attempts, which is 3 for a blood draw attempt. So we say up to 20 minutes. And then 30 to 45 minutes for paramedical exam, which is those medical questions asked in person, plus your blood and your urine. And then if we're adding an ECG on top of it, we say 45 minutes to an hour. And again, just a reminder, every insurance company's application is different. It can range from 2 pages upwards to 8 to 10 pages, and how every client answers those questions is different. So every client is going to be a little different in length of time for those questions. So take that into account as well. So the do's and don'ts of the paramedical exam, like I've been mentioning, it is really important to prepare clients for this. Advisors, you work very hard bringing in that business. We want to make sure that everything goes smoothly after it's passed off to us for our examiner, and to try to get everything wrapped up as quickly as possible and get those results sent to the insurance company. So another thing that we do to help clients prepare is we give the application brochure, and it's PDF that we give to all of our advisors to send out to clients. So it's a good introduction to exam one. You will, clients will see the logo. They'll be introduced to exam one. When the examiner goes out, they've seen the name, they've seen the logo, and they relate it to their insurance that they're applying for. So I will make sure that everyone gets a PDF of this, and just know that we do have it in other languages as well. So if anyone does require another language, you can put it into the chat. Also, any questions that come up throughout the presentation, you can put them in the chat as well, and we will address them at the end. So let's talk about what clients should do. So fast for a minimum of 4 hours, 12 hours if possible. Some insurance companies don't have it as a need for fasting, but for the ones that do, why we say a minimum of 4 hours is because it usually takes 4 hours for the triglycerides, for the glucose, so the sugars and fat levels, to go back to normal after someone's last meal. So that's why we say a minimum of 4 hours. 12 hours usually can be achieved if it's a morning appointment, they have a late dinner, they wake up, they don't eat breakfast, and they see their examiners. And then fasting also does help with blood pressure readings as well. And just note that the examiner always puts the time of the last meal. It's always asked, it's always noted on the paperwork. So especially for those carriers that don't require fasting, that's one of the things that they find out from that paperwork is when the client last ate, and they underwrite around that. So they will need picture ID, so driver's license or passport. Just know that health card is not accepted in the insurance industry as valid ID. Some provinces also have a provincial ID card for those who don't have driver's license. That is valid ID. They will need physician's contact info, so full name, address, telephone number, etc. A lot of people don't know that off the top of their head, so that's why it's good for them to know that ahead of time and have that ready. Same with their medications. They might not know the exact medications or dosages they're taking, so they can gather their pill bottles together, or they can make a list of everything that they're taking and have that ready for the examiner. Notify the examiner of any injuries or illnesses prior to the appointment. That way it can be discussed whether that appointment can be pushed to another date, for instance. And then drinking water is really important. So we definitely want them drinking water if there's a urine sample, but it's also important because it hydrates the body and plumps up the veins. So it makes it much easier for blood draws. So we really want to make sure that clients know the importance of drinking water leading up to their appointment. And we definitely want to make sure they're avoiding those sugary beverages and caffeinated beverages. Female applicants, a lot of them probably wouldn't even take this into consideration, but we do highly suggest them to book around their menses, so their time of their month, their period. If it's unavoidable and that's the only time they can see the examiner, they do need to let the examiner know, and then the examiner notes it on the paperwork. And the underwriters have an explanation as to why there might be blood in the urine when they get those results back. But just know it does cause a lot of repeat urines. So even if there is an explanation, the underwriters realize they were on their menses, they do sometimes request a second urine sample. Wear shorter loose sleeves for blood pressure reading and blood draws, and if ECG is required, to wear loose clothing. So these are all the things that clients should do. let's talk about what they should avoid. So strenuous exercise for 12 hours prior to appointment. Exercise definitely can affect those blood pressure readings, but typically they go back to normal within an hour's time. Why we're saying 12 hours, and this is strenuous exercise. This isn't a little walk around the block. This is perspiring, getting that heart rate up. We say avoid doing that within a 12-hour period because it can cause the client to spill excess protein in the urine. And to underwriters, high protein can be an indication of kidney disease. Avoid alcohol for 12 hours prior to appointment, sugars and alcohol, so that can affect the blood. And then we want them limiting salt and any high cholesterol foods for 24 hours prior to appointment. Again, that can play a factor with those blood pressure readings. And then avoiding smoking and caffeinated beverages for 1 hour prior. That can increase or decrease those blood pressure readings depending on the client. So these are all the things clients should avoid. The do's and don'ts in the application brochure. Again, you will get that in a PDF, and I do suggest sending that out to clients so that they can prepare a couple days before. It is a good idea if you can go over a couple of the key things verbally, but in addition, letting them read through the whole brochure a couple days before is a really good idea. So exam one, we have been doing pre-booked appointments again for pretty much the whole year of 2021, and we continue to accommodate those pre-booked appointments. So we are the only paramedical company currently doing pre-booked appointments. And for those of you who aren't sure how the pre-booked appointment works, it's the advisors having a hand in when that appointment date is. So you would ask your client, when do you want to be seen? We do need 72 hours notice. Sometimes we can accommodate outside of that. So 48 hours we would say would be the minimum notice that we need. So you would get that appointment date and time. So it's an exact date and time. And then we do ideally ask for an alternate date. So if you can give us 2 appointment dates and times and give us that 48 to 72 hours notice, then we work in looking for examiners within that area and ones that can accommodate. And then we will call your client the day before to confirm that appointment. It is treated as a confirmed appointment, but they do get a reminder call. So COVID-19 protocol, we do have rigorous safety procedures in place. We want to protect your clients. We also want to protect our examiners. An important step, which is good to let your clients know ahead of time, is the pre-screening question. So the examiners, this is outside of any reminder calls, any appointments that are being set up, etc. They call the day before or day of to ask those pre-screening questions. So it's really important the client picks up the phone or calls that examiner back so they can answer those questions. So that is an extra step in happening during COVID. So you will want to make sure that your client knows the importance of calling them back, because it is completely up to the examiner and their comfort level whether they still go out if they have not been able to ask those questions ahead of time. And then we do have our examiner wearing their PPE gear, and then we ask clients to wear their mask as well. Once an order is placed, we assign it to the examiner. As mentioned, that examiner will call your client within 24 to 48 hours. They will call the client's preferred contact number, but that's why it's good if you do have an alternate number. It's a second option for that examiner to call. If they're able to leave a message, they'll call usually every other day. If they've been unable to leave a voicemail, or maybe that voicemail is full, they could call as often as every day. But if it gets to a point where they've called 5 times and they're not hearing back from the examiner, we will reach out to the requester. So whether it's admin placing the order for you or whether you're placing it yourself as the advisor, we will reach out to you to let you know that the examiner has been trying to reach the client. That way you're kept in the loop. And then hopefully you can reach out to the client to make them aware the examiner is trying to get in touch with them. So we've talked about the importance of the advisor's role. So this just kind of summarizes everything. Excuse me. Advise clients of what to do and what to expect. So that's that PDF that everyone will get. Really important point number 2. A lot of clients are unaware of how the process works. So if you can make them aware of it, it's going to help things go a lot smoother and avoid any unnecessary delays. So let them know examiners are calling from a random number, an unrecognized number. They are calling from their own cell phone or from their home line. Again, they're independent contractors. They don't work in the office. So what do a lot of us do if we don't recognize the phone number, we don't pick up the phone. I know I'm guilty of it, and certainly a lot of the clients are guilty of it as well. So if they're given a heads up that the examiner is calling from a random number from their cell phone, they're more likely going to pick that phone up. So definitely want to give them a heads up on how that process works. It's not going to show up exam one, or if they're applying to Industrial Alliance, etc. That's not how they're going to see it show up on their phone. And then also make sure that they know the importance of checking those voicemails, and that there's room for a voicemail. A lot of the voicemails are full when the examiner tries to call, so they can't leave their number, and give the client an opportunity to call them back. Finding out your client's availability is really important. So if you're not going the route of pre-booked appointments and giving an exact date and time, even finding out their availability is important. So do they want to be seen on a weekday morning, an evening, or a weekend? Again, all of the examiners have their own schedule. So we want to make sure we're assigning to an examiner that is available when they want to be seen, to avoid that having to reassign to a second examiner. And then any specifications. So what's the best time for the examiner to call? Sometimes we're getting orders placed where the client is a shift worker. So they work nights, they're sleeping in the day, they're unavailable. The examiner calls, they don't reach them, or even worse, they wake them up. So that is helpful information for us to know. Same with if the client works in a factory, a lot of them don't have access to their cell phones. So that's helpful to know their availability. And then any special requirements for the client. So are there multiple orders that are to be booked, a husband and wife? Do they want to be seen together? That's information we need to know ahead of time. Does the client have white coat syndrome or faints when they see blood? So white coat syndrome is a fear of health professionals. So it's definitely going to cause those blood pressure readings to rise, possible fainting, vomiting, etc. Do they require larger blood pressure cuff or scale due to build? So the standard scale goes up to 300 pounds. If it's a situation due to build, we would want to make sure our examiner knows that ahead of time so that they're going out with the equipment that they need. We definitely want to avoid having to rebook an appointment with the client because the examiner didn't have everything they need for the appointment. And the same goes for if they've had any difficulties with blood draws in the past. There are butterfly needles, so that is helpful in those situations. They're easier to insert. However, examiners are only allowed to have 4 at a time. So we would want to make sure they have one on hand if it's a situation where your client might need one. Any special needs or medical conditions our examiners should know about. So these are some good questions to be asking your client ahead of time, and then put that in the order, relay that to our orders team, and then we let the examiner know anything that's needed. Okay, so what happens after the specimens are collected? So the examiner carries all the specimens to the contracted lab. Exam 1, we are the lab for about 3/4 of the insurance companies out there, so we do have a very strong lab presence. Once the lab receives it, they usually receive it within 1 to 2 days. The lab does quality tests to ensure all the codes on the vials, all the signatures match up, everything is as it should be for your client. They complete the testing and they post the results to a website called CaseView. So all the insurance companies have access to this website. They receive notification that the client's results are available for download. They log on and they access those results. I do like to add to this point, it is really important that clients are being consistent with the name on the application and the name that's on the paperwork from the examiner for the lab results. So when you are filling out the application with them, you definitely want to check and write down the name from their ID, because that's what examiners always check, and that's the name that's written down. Sometimes clients might have an English name and a Cantonese name as an example. Sometimes clients go by their middle name, but their ID isn't going to reflect that. Sometimes clients might be going through a separation or a divorce, going back to their maiden name. So those are all examples why there might be a discrepancy in the name. So definitely make sure the name written down is from their ID and it's going to match what the examiner writes down. So that way there's no delay. Those results that are being uploaded for the insurance company to access, it's going to be the same name as the paperwork that or the online application that they're referencing. 30 days is how long the specimens are considered fresh for, and any additional testing within that 30-day window can be done on those original specimens that are collected if the insurance company decides they want to do any additional testing. After 30 days, they are securely disposed of, and if there is additional testing needed, the client would need new blood and or urine collected at that point. So if that's ever happened for a client, it could be because it's gone outside of that 30-day window, and they do need new fresh specimens collected. So just a reminder to everyone on the online lab results. There are 2 online lab results programs. Inside Look is the program with exam 1. I'll just quickly show you the next slide. My Lab Works is the program with Gamma Dynacare Lab. There are only 3 participating carriers in Canada. Each insurance company does have the option to opt in and pay a small fee per client if they would like to participate. It's completely free for the client, but as of right now, there's only 3 companies that are part of the program, and that's Sun Life, and then the next 2 are Canada Life and Manulife. So outside of those 3 companies, if your client wanted their results, they would have to send a written letter to the insurance company, and the insurance company would send the results to the family doctor. So the results always go to the family doctor. And both programs work the same. The examiner goes out, leaves them a barcode and a brochure, and then the applicant can go online within 7 days, do a registration and access their results. If it's ever a situation they don't get that barcode, because again, there are only 3 participating carriers, sometimes the examiner might leave and be like, oh shoot, I forgot that was a company I needed to leave the barcode for. It's a quick resolution. You can call our head office or your local branch office, and they will call the applicant and leave the barcode for them. Okay, so it can't be through you. It has to go directly to the applicant. Okay, so it is a quick resolution. Also, too, if they did have any difficulties with the program, registering, accessing their results, etc., they can call the lab directly, and you will get that information in my follow-up email. And same with Gamma Dynacare's program, you'll get the number for their lab as well. And results stay up for 1 year for both online lab results programs. So we'll switch gears to Medical Information Bureau, also referred to as MIBs, what most of you probably know it as. It originally started in 1895 and was called Rejection Exchange. That name only lasted for 6 months, thankfully, and it changed to a much more professional name, MIB. All insurance companies in North America report and receive MIB codes. It's only for insurance companies. If your client has never applied for insurance, there would be nothing in MIB. If they go to their family doctor, if they go to a walk-in clinic, it's not automatically getting sent to MIB. Okay, so OHIP is not involved. There's over 1,000 codes in the system. One client could have multiple codes. Okay, so we'll go a little bit deeper on the next slide. Each condition and rating gets its own 6-digit code. So again, one client could have multiple codes. Along with that is the identification criteria. So it's going to have client's full name, date of birth, place of birth, and occupation. That's all that's in the system. With the example below, let's say the client had sleep apnea. The first 3 numbers would indicate their sleep apnea. If they had cancer, depending on the type of cancer, those numbers are going to change, diabetes, etc. So the first 3 numbers indicate the condition. The 4th character is the treatment. So what treatment has the client had or is having? The 5th character is the source. So how did MIB find out about this client's sleep apnea, for the example? Did it come from an APS, so an attending physician statement? The only way MIB ever finds out anything from a doctor is if the insurance company has requested an attending physician statement. So it can come from there, it can come from an inspection report, it can come from a motor vehicle report, or the client might have simply told them and informed them on the application. The 6th letter, whatever that letter is the time frame. So how long ago did that happen? So to give you an example to help make this a little easier to understand, let's say your client goes to insurance company A, tells them I have sleep apnea, I'm diabetic, and I had cancer a few years ago, and they get declined. It's preventing them from going across the street to insurance company B and being dishonest and saying no issues here, I'm in good health. That first insurance company puts a code for every condition. So for the sleep apnea, diabetes, cancer, if they ever apply again, like they did in this case to insurance company B, that second insurance company sees those codes. So it's up to them to do their own investigation and to come up to their own conclusion. If your client wants to find out information as to why they might have been rated or why they might have been declined, they can send a written letter to the insurance company asking them to release any reasons or evidence that was collected that resulted in them being rated or declined. And that always goes to the family doctor. So you're probably seeing the theme. Anything that's requested always gets sent to the family doctor, not to the client directly. If they'd like to go to MIB.com themselves, they can go to MIB.com and request their codes. It's a very quick registration. I actually just did this for myself a couple months ago. Probably took me a minute or two, basic information, and they mailed a letter out and I received it in a week. So you get it quite quickly. So clients can do this for themselves. You can do it if you're curious for yourselves. But again, if you've never applied or clients have never applied for insurance yet, that application process hasn't gone through, there's nothing in the system, okay? And just so you know, on the letter that I had for myself, it didn't just list codes, it said an explanation as to what was in the system. And then it said the insurance company that put it in there as well. So it was a great opportunity for me to see how this works. And then really important, the last point is it stays in the client's, on the client's record for 7 years before it's wiped from MIB. Okay, so after 7 years, it is out of MIB's system. So I'll just talk briefly about APSs. They are requested more so for life, for life 20%, more so for living benefits, roughly 40% so for the CI and the DI. It's a report from the applicant's family doctor or specialist, including file information, medical history, lab results, ECGs, any specialist referrals. Okay. The range for APSs is usually between $75 and $250, and each doctor sets their own fee. So I want to let everybody know that when we handle the APSs, Exam 1 and Watermark, we do handle a number of APSs. We fax out the initial report. Okay, so all of the doctors and doctors' offices still like to work by fax. We fax out that report, and in that report are 4 questions that need to be answered. Is this a client of yours, or was this a client of yours? Do you require prepayment, and what is your fee? So those questions are very, very clearly laid out, and we hope to get the answers back to all of them. A lot of the time we don't. Sometimes we find out a couple of weeks later they want prepayment, which means they want their money before they give us the documents back. And sometimes we're finding out the fee later, etc. So just so you have a little more knowledge as to how that process works. And we do have a regular follow-up system in place that we follow up with these doctors. We are completely at the mercies of doctors to submit this to us. Couple tips: if it's dragging on, the client can reach out to their doctor. I had to do that for myself. Mine went on for more than 2 months. They can reach out, hopefully light a fire to get that submitted, or sometimes advisors do it as well. Okay, so that's a little bit more on the APSs. Ask an Underwriter is a value add only with Exam 1. We do have an underwriting division. If you have clients that you're worried might be possibly rated or declined, we can do free pre-assessments. It's by email. The email address is here at the bottom. So if you're working with Exam 1, it's free to use. Examples of client risk factors are here, and you would put that all in the email and send that off to us. Again, it's completely confidential. We do not need names or anything, and we're going by the same reinsurance manuals that the insurance companies go by. The only difference is we don't have each insurance company's internal guidelines. So what we say could vary slightly because of that, but it's going to give you a good idea of their insurability, some good information to have in your back pocket and have those discussions with your clients. So we have a number of branch offices. I will include this in the follow-up email, so I won't go into detail for this. Again, you can place your orders directly with us or request us to the insurance company or your IDC admin. And I'm going to switch gears here to the portal to demo the portal. So this is a test website. So I'm going to be Joseph for this purpose. Okay, so anyone who wants to be registered, please reach out to me. We can get you set up with your password and your username. If you ever forget your password, you can come on here yourself choose forgot password, forgot username. You can quickly get that rectified. When you sign in, you're going to be taken to your home page. So this is your personal dashboard. So it's great because it will keep you organized of all your open cases, all your completed cases. So if you want to know the status, you want to know what's happening with a certain order, you can just go and you can choose any order. So I'll show you that now. So I'm on the dashboard and I'm going to choose this particular case and I'm going to choose case details here on the right. Now, this is a fictitious client. These aren't actual orders, so there aren't status updates to associate to this, but you'll see where you need to go. So you'll see all the details here. And then on the top left here, you're going to choose status. It's going to show you if it's opened, scheduled, or complete. And then right here, you can choose to open status messages. And there's an arrow, and you would click that. So for an actual order, you would see statuses. Again, this is a test website. There's no statuses. So it's great. You'll see in chronological order everything that's happening with that order. Again, that's a home icon that's on your dashboard, and you can choose any order and check what's happening with it. So we'll move across the top to create case. This is where you would come to place your order. So after you've been set up with registration, you can come on here and place your order. You're going to have your agency populated. You're going to have your agent name populated. And then company is where you'll first start to fill out. And that's where you're going to select the insurance company that you're placing the order for. For me, I'm going to choose Canada Test because, again, this is a test website. And then you're going to move over to the right. So we suggest going left to right, moving down through each section to make sure you don't miss anything. Policy type, what are they applying for? So I'm going to say life individual. Policy number, not a mandatory field. If you don't have it, you can bypass it. All the fields with the asterisks are your mandatory ones. So you will need all that information filled out. Anything else is not mandatory. If you don't have it, you can bypass. Quote back, that's for the office. We're going to move down to applicant demographics. Fill out the first and the last name. Suffix you probably won't need, but if you do, it's there. Gender, select the gender. Take note of date of birth, how they want it. They want it day, month, and year. What's great about this new portal, anyone who's used our previous Exam 1 online ordering system, hopefully finds this site a lot more user-friendly and intuitive. Another great thing that's added on here is applicant language. So if you are requesting another language, you can choose a language in the drop-down here. Actually, for this example, I'll choose Cantonese. And then location type. So you're going to be able to select whether they want to be seen at their home, residence, or business. So again, they can be seen at their place of business, provided there's a private room, or they can be seen at your office. So we'll choose residence. And then what's really nice is once you start typing, it's going to bring up all the options of streets and their address. So you can just select in the drop-down menu, I'm going to choose this address, and it's going to populate the rest of the fields. So you can get through that quite quickly. You can add a second address if they're flexible and maybe want to be seen at the office as an alternate. You can add that, but please put the address in where they want to be seen. So don't put their home address if they really only want to be seen at the office. Okay, so give us the address that the nurse is going out to. Contact information. If you have 2 numbers, that's great. Some people don't have a landline, so maybe their office number is an alternate number. So put in here 2 numbers, ideally, if you can. Email address you don't need. First point of contact is always by phone. The examiner always calls the client. At that point, they can discuss if they're going to switch to texting or emails, etc. So that's left up to the examiner and the client. And then we're going to choose review case. We filled everything out. We're going to choose review case. This is your last opportunity to make any changes. So please make sure the date of birth is correct, the amount, address. You definitely want to double check those phone numbers. Sometimes we get orders coming through. The examiner's been wasting time calling, leaving messages, and it's not even the right number. So please check those phone numbers are correct. If they aren't, you can choose edit case and go back and make your corrections. So we're going to choose place order. Everything looks good here. We're on here for a paramedical, so you'll select paramedical here and choose next. Select, so we are going to, so whatever you were applying for, so in this case it was life individual, whatever the insurance company was, it would give you the options for that. This is a test website, so I have to continue choosing test. So override diagnosed services, so it's going to populate the age and amount requirements in here. Okay, if for whatever reason, this would be very rare, say it doesn't generate what's required, you're referencing the illustration, it's showing something different, or maybe the underwriter reached out and said, oh, this client needs an EKG. You would choose override and you would put in here underwriter requesting EKG, and then please include their details, John Smith, and their phone number as an example. Okay, we need to know who it was that requested it and why you are overriding. Okay, you probably won't need to use it, but just know it is there as an option if needed. Notes, this is where you're going to want to put the answers to those questions you're hopefully asking those clients. If you've got pre-book dates, pre-book date for, in this particular case, we did a Cantonese speaking examiner request, so I always suggest putting that in here. Husband and wife want to be seen together. Okay, so these are all examples of things that should go in here. Clients had difficulties with blood draws, etc. Okay, you won't need to attach file, just submit form. So once it's been submitted, you will see the green check mark up here. You will see success. That's how you know our orders team has received it. Print, you can print it. You can save it as a PDF. At the bottom here on the left is view case. So I'm going to show you next how to clone a case. So if you have a husband and wife where a lot of the information is staying the same, you can choose view case. And then you'll see here, it brings you to the first order you've placed and you choose clone. It brings you back up to that order page and you just make any changes and go through that process that I just showed you. So you can get through that second order very quickly. So the next tab up at the top here is administration. This is going to be where all your information is. If anything changes, your cell phone, etc., you can choose edit. So this is all about you and your profile. Order center, the last tab up top, this is how you can filter orders. So paramed, PMD, is what you would be on here for. So you would select that. I believe it's the only one that's going to be hired for you. This is highlighted. This is a test website, so they all are. And then how do you want to filter orders? Canceled orders, completed orders, open orders, or are you filtering by a specific date range? So you can put the start date and the end date in here and choose show orders. Okay, so that's within the order center. And then the last thing to show is the search field. So if you want to search a client, you can come in here and do so. So any orders you've placed, you want to search a client this way, you can put their name in here. You only need one field. You do not need all fields filled out. And if you don't know the spelling of the name, you can just start putting the letters. So I think it starts with BRO. So I'm going to put an asterisk at the end. So that's a wild card. So it will bring up any orders in the system under you that you have placed starting with BRO, and then you hit search. So again, asterisk at the end is a wild card. And then you can click and open the order that you wanted to search. Okay, so that does wrap up the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing here and we will switch gears to the chat to see if there's any questions.
Yeah, so I've got a few questions here. Thank you, Rhonda, so much for that. That was great. First one is, if a foreign language is required for a tele-interview, are all languages covered? And is this arranged for directly by the exam one? Clients get a first call to set up the date, then a second call to complete the interview by the person who speaks the requested language, ?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So exam one, we do have the ability to loop in a third-party vendor for a translator. So that's something you can request initially. And then the good thing is with exam one, so the example here and in the question is different from how exam one works. So exam one, it's actual interviewers who call. So when we call the client for the telephone interview, if we get them, we can do the interview over and done with right then and there. We do not need to schedule for a second appointment. So if we know ahead of time that they want another language, Turkish in this example, I've not heard any restrictions on languages. So just so you know, as far as tele goes, then we just loop them in. And then we put that call out to the examiner and we have that translator on the line.
Wonderful. So is MIB used for all ages or just over age 18?
I believe it is all ages. I've not heard there's an age restriction, so I'm pretty certain it is for all ages, but I will get that clarified just to be sure, and I'll include that answer in the follow-up email, but I'm pretty sure it is for all ages.
And will you be sending out a PDF of this slideshow?
No, I can't send out the full slideshow. It is proprietary information. It's confidential. But if there are certain slides that people see value in, because there are a couple slides that advisors might want to send out to their clients, just let me know, put it in the chat, and I can send that information off and send those couple slides, but I can't do the whole slide show.
Okay. Do they go through the same medical questions as on the insurer's application? I believe you already addressed this one, but just for clarification, they're asking if there will be consistency from the insurer's application to your guys' tele interview. Is that what I believe they're asking?
Yes, I think that's what they're asking. So all the applications that we ask Exam One are supplied by the insurance company. So whether it's a telephone interview or whether it's a paramedical form asked in person, what the examiners are doing, it's supplied by the insurance company. Now, there is consistency with the questions. However, insurance companies purposely ask those questions in different ways. So if they're being asked it a couple times, they are going to be asked it a little bit differently, more likely than not. And that's done on purpose. They want to make sure that clients are answering consistently to those questions.
Will the do's and don'ts be sent to the individual emails? I believe this question was asked in reference to the brochure time when you were talking about the brochure time. So will that brochure be sent to the advisor? And if not, how do they access that brochure?
So I will send out a follow-up email. I'm probably not necessarily going to get everyone's email from the presentation. We'll see what comes back in the attendees and participation list. But my intention is to send that out to everyone. If not, Wendy will get it and can circulate it to everyone. And that PDF of the application brochure will be in there. So the examiner doesn't send it out. It is something the advisor needs to send to the client.
And so, and we're getting a few people asking in the question and answer area in the chat for the copies of the slides in those do's and don'ts area. So that seems to be a hot spot for that conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I've got that asked before. So I already do have those few slides broken out separately. So I'll include that.
Great. And so what if you don't know where they want to be seen, or that location changes from the time the client tells us and what they then tell the provider? So there's a little bit of change from the time that what the advisor has the conversation with the client to, you know, maybe when they're calling the client.
Yes. So if the location does change, then you would want to reach out to our office. So I am going to include all the office details in a follow-up email. So you can always reach out to head office. There is an email in there as well. So if it's easier just to send the email giving the client's name, please do give the client's date of birth as well. We always need the first, last name, date of birth to look up orders, especially if you don't have the order number. So please do give all that detail. Then the new address change, we will update the order, or you can always reach out to the branch office directly. So if you know it's the BC office handling it, you are going to get that branch office information in the follow-up email. So yes, please do reach out to the office and they will update the examiner.
Okay, so they've got a follow-up question, but what if the advisor is unaware of the location request change? Will that be taken care of through the phone? Like, can the client do that themselves on their end?
Yes. So say the examiner calls the client to book that appointment, and then the client says, actually, I'm not going to be seen at home. I'm back to work now. I want to be seen at the office. Absolutely. They can discuss that and figure it out themselves. If it's a situation where now the new location is outside of that examiner's assigned territory, then that order would have to get sent back to the office and assigned to another examiner. But absolutely, that can be discussed and figured out with the client and examiner.
Perfect. And I was hoping that on that follow-up email, you make reference to that ask an underwriter at Watermark Insurance email
Yes.
address?
Yep, that is definitely in there. So there's going to be the PDF, the information PDF, and then there's also going to be a fillable PDF. So if advisors want to fill out the single page PDF, they can do so and attach it to the email. And again, it's completely confidential. No names are ever needed.
So just to be clear, when you send an email to that email address, you want as much information as possible, which will be the fillable PDF, which would be ideal.
Yeah, so the fillable PDF is probably easier because then you know you're getting everything. But if you just want to scan it so that you know what's needed, you can just put that all in the body of the email. But definitely the more information, the better. It just helps to the underwriters come back with a more accurate assessment, right?
Yeah, and that's great. And just from an IDC standpoint, we help a lot with prelims. So as a BDE, and I'm sure your local BDEs, all the advisors that's on the line, feel free to forward that information that you get to your BDE to help you direct where it should go afterwards, because we're always here to help as well. So I think that's it for the questions. I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank all of you IDC advisors for your time, for showing up, asking some good questions, and I hope you took away something good. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, everyone.